Hey YouTube! Today I'm going to be showing you some pro tips on driving on the motorway. Let's get straight into it. So the first tip is about joining a motorway at the correct speed. Now motorways, the speed limit is generally 70 miles an hour if there's no limitations. It may be lower if there's a problem on the motorway or there's a lot of traffic or there's a crash. So what that means is you need to come off the motorway slip road doing at maximum 70. Now, maximum's important, but the minimum's also important. If you join too slowly, then you're going to cause an obstruction on the motorway because people are going to have to move out the way for you when you join, and that will cause people to brake and swerve and so on. So what you want to do is join at a speed which is suitable for the current speed of the motorway. If there's a lot of lorries, for example, that might be 56 miles an hour because that's the top speed that they're limited to, and that's generally what lorry drivers go at on the motorway. But if there's not many lorries, then you may find yourself joining at 60 or 70. You need to judge the speed of the first lane. It's important to use all your car's acceleration when joining a motorway on the slip road. You want to accelerate before you join, not after. So here we go, I'm going around a roundabout now. I'm going to be joining the M1. I'm indicating off. You can see the national speed limit signs, and I'm already doing 30. And I can already see quite quickly the motorway is fairly empty. There's a couple of lorries, so I'm going to accelerate hard now. I'm going to utilize the acceleration of the car. I'm doing 60. I can see a lorry outside my window, but I'm going to beat it. I'm indicating now onto the motorway, and you can see, because I'm already doing the speed that's required to join, the flowing speed of the motorway, it's really simple to join. I've not caused any obstructions. I'm already in the flow. I'm now on the motorway. Really simple, really easy. Just make sure you accelerate early, utilize your car's performance on the slip road, and you'll be fine. So my next tip is about overtaking on the motorway. You can see right now I've got a lorry in front of me. I'm doing about 58, 57 miles an hour, cruising along behind him, left a sensible gap, and there's cars passing me on the middle lane. I can see them in my mirror. I'm doing my checks. Now, if I want to overtake this lorry, I could do one of two things, and one's correct and one's incorrect. Now, the incorrect thing to do would be to pull out right now without accelerating, without planning my gap. What that would do is cause anyone in the second lane to brake or move over to the third lane and cause them an inconvenience. What I should do instead is build a bit of a gap to the lorry, so I'm starting to back off now. I can see a car on my right hand side. He's going to pass me on the middle lane. I'm now going to accelerate and indicate at the same time. So I'm building up the speed in the first lane, and now I'm going to pull out. And so by the time I've got into the middle lane, I'm already doing the speed required to overtake. And so no one behind me is going to have to brake for me. I'm not going to cause any inconvenience for them. I'm already in the flow again. It's about trying to keep that smoothness. And once I'm done, I can pull back in. I've checked my mirrors. I can then slow back down to the speed that I want to be doing and continue on my journey. But I've not affected anyone in that process. And all it takes is a bit of pre-planning and accelerating slightly earlier, leaving that gap in the first lane or the second lane or whatever lane you're in, then moving over after you've built up that speed. It's okay to downshift your car and use the performance again. Cars are designed to use full throttle or shift down occasionally. There's no problem with that. And so if you're in 6th gear, you might drop down to 4th or 5th. If you're in an automatic, you can use the kick down mode, and I'll show you that in a bit. So I've just got off the motorway and I'm going to be going back the way I've came, and the reason for that is I want to show you the difference in MPG that you'll get by going at something like 56 miles an hour versus 70 miles an hour. And I'm not going to show you the whole journey, we'll time lapse it. So I'm just going around the M1 roundabout now, and I'm going to reset my MPG just as I get onto the slip road, so that's pretty fair. Just waiting for some of the cars to accelerate again. Pull over to the right, go to the second lane. There's no reason why we can't use that to get back onto the M1. And actually that's a useful tip to understand as well. There's nothing wrong with using the second lane. Zipper merges are a really efficient way of getting two cars into one. It's just about letting people through. So don't be aggressive on the motorway. It doesn't help anyone, it actually slows everyone down. So I've just reset my MPG and we're going to see what it looks like at the end when we get towards the next exit. So I'm going to accelerate like normal. I've actually cut across the lanes there, that wasn't great, but I've indicated there was no one around me, and that's the zipper merge effectively done anyway. I'm going to accelerate to 60 because that's a pretty fair speed to join. There are cars on the motorway, but they're all away from me. It's a nice I-8 there. And I'm on the motorway now. I'm going to slow down slightly to, let's go to 56. I'm going to pull over to the first lane because the first lane was originally a lane for merging and now it's just part of the normal motorway. And we're going to sit on cruise control and let's time lapse. One thing it's important to know and understand is that your car's speedo isn't 100% accurate. There are loads of factors which change what speed is displayed to you versus what speed you're actually doing. Things like your tyre size or the amount of wear on your tyres, or even the calibration from factory. And you'll hear stories on the internet ranging from 10% to fixed mileage amount, and it depends per car. What's important to know though is that you can check what speed difference you have on your car. And so I've got the limiter set on my car right now to 70 miles an hour. So my car is telling me that I'm doing 70. But I've got Waze open on my phone. I'm going to switch to the Waze here. You can see the screenshot. And it's currently showing 69 miles an hour. And this car actually is pretty consistent. What I've found is that there is a 1 mile an hour difference between the speedometer and the speed on Waze. And I'll show you that now. I'm going to slow down slightly. I'm going to go to 60. There's no one behind me, so I'm not going to cause any problems. I'm actually just going to brake slightly. There we go. And as I start to rest on 60, and it's on the limiter again, so I'm going to put my foot on the throttle. You can see now the car is showing me 59 miles an hour. This varies per car. I've been in a Peugeot 206 where it said I was doing 70 on the speedometer and actually doing 63. And I've been in a Mercedes which has done 70 and actually shows 65. And so you need to check this for your individual car. What this does mean is you've got a reason and understanding as to why you might be doing 70 on the motorway on your speedometer, and yet there are cars still going past you, especially when there's speed cameras or a reason for other drivers to slow down. And so in average speed especially, you might find yourself doing 50 and cars still going past you, and you're wondering why are they going past you. And it could be two reasons really. One, they're in a rush, or they're pushing their limits. Maybe they're doing 51 or 52. Or it could be that your car is telling you you're doing 50, but you're actually doing something more like 47 or 46. So it's well worth getting that checked out. Get a phone mount, put your phone on, go onto Waze, check the speedo. I think Google Maps does it now as well. And it's a really useful bit of information to understand and know while you're driving on the motorway. I've just pulled over and I've been averaging around 56 miles an hour, maybe some slight acceleration and deceleration, but it doesn't really matter. What's important is that I was consistent enough and I was at a lower speed. And I actually averaged 52.3 miles an hour, miles per gallon even. And that was up a slight hill. This car can do up to around 75. So 52, 53 up a hill is pretty reasonable. But we're going to see the difference now when I do around 70 miles an hour and see how that MPG drops. Okay, so I'm now back on the same stretch of motorway that I started on for the first MPG test. I've reset my MPG again. I'm going to wait for the lights to go green. Here we go. And I'm going to accelerate in the same sort of manner and fashion as I did the last time, but this time I'm going to average about 70 miles an hour. So let's go. And here's just another note on vehicles sitting in the middle lane for no reason. So that van has just had to go third lane and then cut all the way back to the first, when that Corsa or whatever that Vauxhall is should have moved over into the middle lane, because then the van wouldn't have had to go to the third, then back to the second, then back to the first. The van would have only just sat in the second, overtook and moved back to the first. So that Corsa is now effectively a roadblock. This first lane is completely useless because of that one Corsa. And we'll see that in a second actually. Here we go, we've got a BMW and an Audi, and if they accelerate past me, which I think they are, so there's the Audi, and he's going to have to stay in the third lane. Oh no, here we go. I think he's going to make a point. I think he is actually, yeah, look, making a point, and there we go, finally. So the Audi's had to move over to the second lane, and I assume he's either flashed or maybe put up some fingers, who knows, and forced that Corsa to the first lane just because that Corsa wasn't paying attention. So follow the rules, just move over to the left. So here's an awkward situation. I'm going towards a car in the first lane, there's cars in the second. Now I can either slow down or I can start to indicate, and let's see if the person in the middle lane moves over, and sure enough they do. Fantastic, this is exactly what I wanted to demonstrate, but another driver's done it for me. So I've got my hand up to say thank you in the window, and I can now overtake, maintaining my 70 miles an hour, and no one's had to brake, no one's had to slow down or anything like that. And it's all because that lady there has seen me indicating, I've made my my potential move obvious, and she's chosen to move over and give me space. Now she doesn't have to do that. There's no requirement or anything like that, but it means that the motorway flow is a lot nicer. And if you can do that, if you can spot someone indicating, or maybe you see a car getting closer and closer towards someone in the first lane, and it's obvious that they're about to overtake, just move over if you've got the space, and you're not going to obstruct anyone as a result, because then they can move over and the motorway can continue to flow. And that's one of those really pro tips that some people just simply don't consider. They're too focused on just their lane and not paying attention to any of their surroundings. And that's how you can really look like you've been on the motorway for thousands of miles. Alright, so we've now just done another drive at 70 miles an hour average. We had to again slow down and speed up slightly, but it's okay, that's fine. Exactly the same stretch of road, we're in exactly the same position that we stopped, and we reset the counter pretty much in the same place. This time we've averaged 47.8 mpg, so we've lost 6 miles per gallon just by doing an extra 14 miles per hour. That's quite a big difference actually, and if I was to do this journey for a longer time period, over less hills and maybe a flatter terrain, you'd probably see even a bigger difference. Actually, I've recorded up to 75 mpg on this car when I've done between 56 and 60, and if I do 70, I'll see around 45 to 50. And that's a huge difference, especially when you're doing thousands of miles a year. So something to bear in mind. Now, if you do the maths, or even just practically do it, try one day on your commute, go at 56 and go at 70, you'll find that the time difference between your journeys is pretty negligible actually. If you just set out 10 minutes or so before, then you could be saving £2 or £3 a day in fuel. And that adds up super quick when you consider the cost over a year or cost over multiple journeys. And that's it, YouTube. That's my pro tips on driving on the motorway. Hopefully you found those useful. Comment down below if you do find them useful and let me know your pro tips. I've not covered everything. I'm sure you're going to find flaws in some of the things I've done. I'd love to hear what your best suggestions are. This is a different style of video for me again. I'm using multiple cameras, I'm using sync points and all sorts of new techniques. So also, I'd love some feedback on the video style and whether you'd like to see more of this or whether you'd like to see more one take things. Let me know. Cheers guys, like, share, subscribe, you know the usual. Cheers.